Oh, what a lovely day in the neighborhood. It is now 83 degrees, and just moments ago it was at 90. And so the rain's coming, and people are running off the beach, and the other ones are still in the water, which is dumber than dirt, because lightning bolts do hit people in the water. So obviously they're tourists, and they don't know better. But anyway, so this story is kind of like the Marilyn Monroe story of the year. And it's kind of like, they always said that they would tell the true story about Marilyn Monroe after like 30 years or something, and then even though everybody's dead, they still won't tell exactly the truth. So I can't believe people messaging me over this stuff when it's ended at 5. But anyway, so this is a true story, and most all of the people involved are deceased today. Actually, the biggest criminal of all died about a year ago, and I found it online, oddly enough, that he was deceased. Anyway, a while back, I was Miss Platinum Plus in Memphis, Tennessee. I had 3 costume shops. I designed and made clothes and shoes and jewelry and all kinds of stuff for entertainers of all types, the casinos, wait staff, security staff, casino pit bosses, Vegas showgirls, strippers, ladies of the evening, so-called models in Georgia, and just all kinds of stuff. I hope you're not pouring gasoline into the grass. But anyway, and it's something I've loved and done for many, many years, since I was about 15. I did it as a side gig with other jobs after I left home at 15 and a half. And I have pretty extensive education in sewing and fashion design and merchandising, all the way through UCLA. But anyway, so, and I have a few billboards with my face on them in Memphis, and I made really, really, really good money. And I could work when I wanted, pretty much. If I wanted to take the weekend or the day off, I could with my kid. I didn't even have to work nights if I didn't want to. I bought a house, a really big house, 5-story, 15-room Victorian with a 1-bedroom, 1-story behind it, 15-car driveway, big granddaddy porch, and on and on and on, all by myself with no man's help, and the bank wouldn't even touch me because I was a single parent. And the people I bought it through with their owners after their mother died, it had kind of sat vacant. They had no interest in renting it at all. They wanted to sell it. And so I had bought that, and that's another story. But I had put my daughter's name and my name on it in the event that I died, so that she would have a home. And I swore it'd be the last house I would renovate. I was done. I said, this one will be my home. I'll renovate it most all myself. What I can't do, I'll hire other people. And so I swing a hammer on it till the day I got hit by a tornado. But anyway, well, I still did after that, I guess. But anyway, I was doing real well, and I was the house feature at Platinum Plus in Memphis, Tennessee, and I drove back and forth to work. Back when there was only like a two-way road going to Memphis, and lived on near the Mississippi River, where that song Old Black Water by the Doobies. Right at that place of that song I've always loved, and I realized it was actually about that place. So that was pretty magical. Anyway, so I was working at Platinum one day, and I think it was like a Sunday or something, and these two guys came in, and I believe this guy, pretty sure this guy's deceased. I've tried to reach him through the years, Jim Whitehead. And this guy, Larry Robert Thurman. This guy was like 6 foot tall, blue eyes, gray hair, slender, wore a little bit of gold, dress shirt, dress slacks, dress shoes, just real classic looking man. And he had kind of crooked teeth, was the only unfortunate thing. Jim Whitehead, he was a character. He was a bit of a portly gentleman. He had absolutely perfect teeth. They were all capped, and his wife had recently passed away, and he was a nice man. And Jim sold life insurance. I'm trying to think of the company that he worked for. It's a really big company, and he made money. He made a lot of money selling life insurance. But anyway, so these two guys came in. They were very nice, and then one guy tipped me real good, and we talked for a while. The place was kind of slow, and we laughed and had great times. You know, they were there for a couple hours, I guess. And so I couldn't get a dance out of Jim, but I got a dance out of Thurman. And he wanted VIP, and we went back there, and he was just like throwing the $100 bills. And then he was pretty totaled by then. And so, anyway, I had made really good money off this guy on stage and dances. And so, it was really kind of interesting. And so he left, and then he came in another time or two, and then he came in. I always worked the holidays when I could, part of it anyway, because they were always really big money. And so I worked day shift. So here comes Thurman, and the place was deader than a doornail. And he walks right up to me and says, "Come sit with me." I said, "Okay." And everybody was like, you know, because I worked with a lot of real hot dogs over there, and, you know, they always figured they were first, you know, but this guy picked me, so I went over to sit with him, and we talked, and he was very nice, and he was one of those kind of guys that didn't ask like 101 questions, you know. That's always the aggravating part if you're a showgirl, because people want to ask you 101 questions, and it's like, you know, I didn't have to put a resume in to get this job, okay? And I didn't ask you who your wife is or where you live or anything like that. You know, it's like, do you want to dance or do you not? You know, you have to be so careful in the business. I worked in the business back before they did dances and stuff in California. I worked a little bit here and there when I couldn't get other work, bartending and stuff at the country clubs or the airport or whatever, or doing banquet bartending. And you have to be so careful what you tell people, and you have to watch very carefully when you leave, because people will stalk you and follow you and kill you and stuff. And when I worked in California, it was ultimately dangerous to be in that business, and I didn't even have kids then. So you just have to be careful what you tell people. You can't tell them everything unless you know them real well, and other people know them too. So anyway, we sat and talked, and he said he had no family, and that he thought he'd come out for Thanksgiving, and he was glad I was there. And hell, he probably saw my car. And I was driving, I think, my red Camaro then. I had a red Camaro, and I had a big brown Cadillac that was left to me by Philip St. Columbia. That's another story. This guy I never slept with that was a customer. But anyway, so this guy sat with me most of the day. I think at that time I had rented a very nice house out by the country club. That was a neat little house. I should have never moved out of that thing. But anyway, so he got really toasty drunk. And then he was telling me how he works for the city of Memphis. And I was interested in getting a beeper. That was a new thing. That if you had a beeper, that way, babies could get a hold of you, or anybody could get a hold of you, and, if you had a beeper. And so that was like before car phones. And so that was the thing I wanted to do. I wanted to get a beeper, and they were really expensive back then. I think it was like $200 for a beeper and like $100 a month for the service or something. They were terribly expensive. And all this thing did was it beep beep, and a number would come up. And then sometimes I would have it where it would say urgent or call me or something like that. It just depended on what kind of beeper you had in the service. But anyway, so he's like, well, you have a beeper? And I said, no. And he said, hell, I got 2. And he says, here, you can have this one. Service is on and everything. And I said, really? I said, how much you want for it? And he said, no, you can have it. Don't worry about it. I was like, oh. And he gave me the number to it and everything. Handed it to me. I was like, okay. So I didn't know what to think, because this guy was kind of toasty drunk. And I thought, I don't know. He might have just found it on the floor or something, and he decided to hand it to me. So he was kind of an interesting cat. He was, okay looking, but he wasn't anything I was, like, really thrilled about or had a crush over or anything like that. He was just a gentleman that worked for the city, as far as I was concerned. I didn't even know what he drove. And so we were talking, and he got really jacked up, and we went back to VIP. I did some dances, and we would talk. He'd still pay me without even doing a dance. He'd just throw hundreds at me. And so I got a beeper and some hundreds. And then he says, I would love to have a kid. I would pay $5,000 if I could have a kid. And he's like, I don't have kids. And I was like, So anyway, he left, came back again Christmas, brought Whitehead with him, and we all sat and talked and laughed. The girls would go, oh, your friend is here. And because he would ask everybody for me. So I'd go out there and sit with them, and I would sit with them 3, 4, 5 hours, however long they were going to be there, because it was constant money. So I didn't have to worry about bopping around the room and stuff, because, I was making money constantly. So, I wasn't quite sure, what the gig was. I didn't know if the guy was a millionaire or just dude flashing money or what. And, I guess I'll turn this thing on for a minute. I don't know. It's so hot. It's 83 now. It's getting better. There's somebody play some music. I gotta turn this off. because YouTube will whack it. But anyway, so this guy became like a real regular. He would come in most of the time during day shift, like around noontime kind of thing, when he would show up. And sometimes he'd stay for a little bit. Sometimes he'd stay for several hours. And he always tipped me, and, you know, always wanted to buy a dance from me, sit with me, whatever. And, so, he was a real good regular, you know. So then he's asked for his beeper back. One day he said, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have given it to you. He said, that's registered with the city of Memphis. And I was like, oh. And I had it in my locker. So I went and I got it and gave it back to him. And I thought, well, this is kind of bull. You know, here's a guy that friggin' is giving stuff away and taking it back like the Indian Giver of the Year. And if you're that drunk, you're really stupid. Look at him sending me messages left and right on that auction stuff. So anyway, it's after 5. Anyway, so he was a regular, came in for several months, I guess, and I really like Jim Whitehead. What a nice man. He was really super neat, down to earth, regular, honest kind of dude. He was definitely, well, after all of it was said and done, he was definitely more real than Thurman ever was. So, never called him Larry Robert Thurman. He liked to be called Thurman. And I thought, well, maybe he was a football player or something. Everybody called him Thurman. But Thurman's a pretty name for a first name, but that wasn't his first name. But that's what he was called, was Thurman. So anyway, well, he was a goofy so-and-so when he drank. He was real serious when he didn't drink. Very business, very serious. Kind of almost like dark, cloudy personality. And then when he drank, he was just goofy as crap. And I mean goofy. And so I would talk about how he was Elvis's brother and all this kind of crap, and he was just goofy. But anyway, I never met his parents, his mother and father. He used to brag all the time that his brother was the mayor of Memphis, and there was a white mayor and a black mayor at that time. I don't know if they still do that, but his brother was the white mayor of Memphis, who was supposed to be really uptown kind of dude, which I didn't meet or talk to him until years later. But he used to always throw that in people's faces for the power play. Anytime the cops would mess with him or anything else, he would say, my brother's the mayor and I'll have you fired, and da 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 da. So, and this guy was a former sheriff for a short time in Tennessee, this Thurman guy. And I know that for a fact because he had the documentation at the Pickwick house. We had 2 houses, one that was glass all on the back in Pickwick, Tennessee, that overlooked Pickwick Lake and the dam and all that. That was a neat place, but it was kind of a scary place and kind of a strange place. The neighbors didn't like Thurman, and they all had children, and it was all high dollar in there. And I had a little girl, and you know, the kids wanted to play together and stuff, but one time, one of the parents, the mother, had kind of said, well, I'd let my children play over here, but we don't want to leave them alone with him, the guy that owns this house. I said, Thurman? And she said, yeah. She says, but if you're going to be here, then, you know, we approve of our kids playing with your kid. And I was like, okay. It was just really interesting. But anyway, that was an odd occurrence. But anyway, and we had a a real nice apartment in Germantown, Tennessee. He owned some other houses, a cabin up in Tennessee, up on the lake or whatever. And then he also had a really nice home in Germantown that he was renting out. So he was renting those two out, or lease option, buy, some kind of weirdness. The only thing was the cabin, there was some trick with the cabin. You could never own it because it was on government property or something. And I'm like, well, aren't the people going to want to, like, shoot you if they buy it and they don't really own it? One time when he was drunk, he talked about how he claimed insurance. He was kind of big on insurance fraud, it seemed. He would talk these weird stories, like he said, yeah, I burned the Germantown house with a dog in it, and then got the insurance for that, and rebuilt it, and then, I rented it out or something, I don't know, or sold it, I don't know, and was taking payments on it, I don't know, I don't remember how that went. And I was like, huh? I didn't know whether to believe him or not, you know. And so, like, this guy was super sober, I think, the first year, I guess, I was with him. And everybody kept saying, how do you keep him so sober? I said, well, he I don't know. I said, he doesn't drink that much. And, you know, like when he comes to the club a little bit, or, you know, but otherwise he doesn't drink that much. Because I don't like liquor in the house with my kids, and I'm not putting up with a drunk, and that's just me. I don't find it appropriate. I'm not going to put up with drugs in the house, and a lot of that drug thing is over my other daughter's dad, because there was a situation there, and I said, no. So I was really stern on that. But anyway, there are some weird cats over here today. Anyway, it was just interesting. So, you know, I had a pretty good friend I used to work with named Kathy Stotts. She's dead now. She died this year. And I was telling her about this guy, you know, that I met at work. And she says, God, it sounds great. You know, I was like, he makes so much money, and he works for the city of Memphis this many years, and da-da-da-da-da. And she says, God, that's great. She says, for once, just for once, why don't you get a guy that will take care of you? And then this lady just parked here, and it's illegal as hell. When that young cop comes over here, the party's over. So anyway, she's got to be tourist, because it says Walton Beach, Florida. So she doesn't know better. But anyway, so I told her, I said, but I mean, he's just not my kind of guy. He's kind of goofy. He has his jacked up kind of teeth. I mean, if he has money, why aren't his teeth fixed? And she says, well, you know, he's got a good job, and he makes money, and, you know, he owns property, and all. I'm like, so? I mean, you know, my mother used to say when we were little, she'd say, marry a rich man. And I was like, I think that was like the last thing I ever looked for, was marry a rich man, because that's not what I'm looking for. I've had lots of great opportunities with rich men that offered to marry me, made me right into their house, this, that, and the other. And I turned it down because I didn't care for them like that. I liked them as a friend, but they weren't attracted to me, you know. I just kind of was like, nope, that's not the kind of guy I want. Here's a guy going with a boat with the bumpers all hanging down. God, what a Dumbo. Look at him dragging in the water. He must have rented that stuff. What a doofus. So, anyway, God, that is hilarious. So anyway, the better part would be if he had that awning up and it'd be speeding across the bay. With the bumpers hanging down, right? So anyway, she's like, no, just for once, you need to have a man that takes care of you. You know? And I said, well, I don't know about all that. She's like, you got a kid, everything. I said, I'm fine. I make my money. I made so much money. As a matter of fact, Ike's mother worked at the Helena National Bank, and she told me I deposited more than local farmers up there every day. And the farmers trust me own the town. They own the town, the utilities, everything. So I must have been doing pretty good. But anyway, so I was like, I just don't think so. You know, other than the fact that he's a customer, I met him as a customer of a strip club. It was a high-end strip club, one of the best you could go to. And I just didn't think that would be a good idea. So, but here was my friend who had like 3 daddies to 1 kid and all kinds of interesting stuff. But yeah. So I was just kind of like, nah. And you know that as a rule in the entertainment industry, as a showgirl, you never go with a money man. That's what they call money man. You don't give it up to a money man. Everything goes wrong. And as a matter of fact, I know that for a fact. So, yeah. Let the story begin. Oh boy. Stay tuned for part 2.